All right, what's going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Shooter, and welcome back to another reloading and results, this time with my Uintah Precision bolt action AR-15, and this guy is chambered in 6mm ARC. Today we're going to be shooting the Barnes 112 grain match burner 6mm bullet, obviously. So this one is a fun one. There's no load data out there for the Barnes 112, so how do we go about that, right? Basically, I took load data from the Hornady 108s. That's kind of what you have to go off out of there. The 6ARC is still a new enough cartridge that you don't see a lot of load data from other places. You have Hodgdon and you have Hornady. So let's see here. I don't believe I marked down where I got my data for this, actually. I don't remember if it was Hodgdon or if it was Hornady here. But regardless, the 6mm ARC has a couple unique things that make it difficult to reload for. One of them being, I wanted to find my max overall length with my Hornady overall length gauge, which is this little guy right here, right? So the way this dude works, you got a little set screw, and then this wire pushes in or out, and then what you have is a threaded case. This is called a modified case gauge. This guy threads onto here if you don't cross thread it like I'm doing repeatedly. There we go. And so normally it has this nice little cutout. You bottom it out just like this, and you can slide your calipers onto there so you get a reading from the bottom to the top. The problem is this guy is so short with its case capacity that the actual area that this is threaded onto contacts your bullet, and so you can't get a short overall length reading. This little dude in here, which truthfully, like, I should just cut this guy off. I don't know why that's even there, honestly. Maybe that's what I'll do. But inside the case, it's almost to the shoulder of the case. So if you have a long bullet, like a Barnes 112 grain 6mm, if the bottom of the bullet contacts if the bullet contacts the lands and the butt of the bullet needs to come down further than the shoulder of the case, you're not going to get a correct reading. So this guy makes it a little difficult to try and figure that out. So what I ended up doing is just threading it on a couple threads like this, but then you don't have the cutaway to measure correctly from the bottom. So roughly, my guesstimation, I know that it will shrink a couple thousandths from squaring it up, and I said, hey, it'll probably be about 5 thousandths shorter than my measurement. Could be more, I don't know, because I don't have the tool to figure it out. And overall, we found a max overall length of 2.375 to the lands, and that is overall length, not cartridge base to ogive, because on this much of an angle the ogive tool sits on the bullet so crooked that it's just not getting us the right angle that we need to measure. So bit of a headache there trying to figure out where it lined up in this gun. The second headache comes from, well, now the bullet's max overall length that I want to shoot this closer to the lands doesn't fit inside my magazine, so it turns this guy into a single feed bolt action. So that's a little bit annoying as well. It's not exactly how the rifle was intended to shoot, but that's what you get when you're reloading, and at least we can do it, right? But the reason I want to shoot the Barnes close to the lands is 2 reasons. I've had good luck with it in my 708 shooting the match burners close to the lands, so I want to try it in this guy as well. The second reason is I want more case capacity, because that's the second problem with the 6mm ARC. The powder just fills this guy up too much, and by the time you put a big long target bullet down in there, it eats up a bunch of case capacity. And so then to have like a good stout charge to try and keep up with factory ammo, now there's not enough room in there for the powder and the bullet, and you get super compressed charges, and then that can do funky stuff too. So 6ARC's got a few little headaches going on with it, which, because it's hard to get case capacity on, leads us to the powder choice that we chose. Now the factory ammo is fast and it's hard to keep up with. It really is hard to find the right component to get it to go the velocity that the factory ammo will at the 108s. Now obviously Hornady works with Hodgdon, and they have stuff that just isn't available to reloaders. Maybe they're using something that is, I'm not sure, and maybe I'm just not pushing something hard enough like Hornady does. But that's the crazy part. Hornady gets that velocity without showing the pressure signs. So I don't know what they're using, but yeah, that's kind of the end of that. So we chose ball powders instead of extruded powders. I really like extruded powders because I want consistent velocities. and temperature and sensitivity. I live out in the desert where in the wintertime it can be anywhere from 30 degrees and then in the summertime 115 degrees. And yes, I've shot in the range with triple digits when it's hot. So it is important to me to be able to shoot good groups in the cool, which is when I like to shoot, and occasionally when it's hot. Sometimes I just want to go shoot in the summer anyway. So our two powders that we chose, Power Pro 2000 MR. I was hoping to get good velocities out of this guy. I've seen a lot of it on Gianni's reloading bench. And then StaBALL Match. This is a newer offering from Winchester. It goes along with their StaBALL line. So there's Match, which this guy's the fastest one. You have 6.5 StaBALL. That's kind of the medium H4350 range. And then you have StaBALL HD, which is going to be your Magnum powders. So yeah, I've used this guy before. I can't remember exactly where. It may have been 6 ARC. I have to go back and double check. I think I may have used it in 223 as well. But right here shows you ideal for 223 rem, Valkyrie, 22-250, 308, 30-06, and more. So yeah, good powder. And today I'm excited to go see how it's going to do. So what brass are we using? We are using once fired Hornady brass, and I resized it down to the specific headspace I listed here. I'm looking over my notes as how I'm getting all this information to you guys. Primers we're using Federal small rifle match primers, so pretty standard there. They're not the AR match, just the standard small rifles. And yeah, my RCBS had a weird freak out thing recently, my Charge Master over here, and it was acting weird. Now there's a note right here that says if you unplug this guy out of your Charge Master, to unplug the wall unit before you plug that in. And I didn't follow that instruction, and I think that's what caused my headache. It just went wacky. It was weighing the charge pan wrong. I know the weight of that thing. It's 80.3 to 80.4 grains. It always has been. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, that thing's 81 grains. And I'm like, no, I know it isn't, because this guy even tells me that it's not. And then the charge weights were varying and stuff. It was doing wacky shit. So I was double checking it with the scale here. But yeah, RCBS was back to normal for this reloading session. It was a previous video where I had issues and it had been solved for this, but I'd still double checked it just to, you know, once you're a little uneasy about something, you don't want to screw up your test because your RCBS is throwing weird charges out there. But overall, that should pretty much cover what we've got going on. The Uintah Precision UPR 15, this guy's got a 1-2, what is it, 8.5 twist? Is that what's marked on this barrel? I think it's an 8.5 twist. You'd have to double check their website. Pretty confident it's an 8.5 twist. And I think it's a 22-inch barrel on here. This bolt action upper pins onto any AR-15 lower. This one happens to be their matching billet receiver sets. It's a complete UPR 15 combo here. I also have a semi-automatic 223 Wild upper to go along with this combo. So I got like the bolt action and the semi-auto to go together. It's a sweet little combo. Got the tracked optic up top, burst pepper mount, and a Uintah Precision Vitrum trigger in there. Really nice trigger. I like that a lot. I was using Amend 2 magazines. I believe they're a 6.5 Grendel mag, but they also happen to work really good for the 6 ARC. Let's get out to the range. We're going to shoot some groups, and we'll come back here and talk about the data. Okay, previously in these format videos, I've been talking velocities first and then covering the groups. I want to put them together. So it's going to be more numbers for each specific load, but that's how it goes. I don't know if I've covered this at this point. I shot 10 rounds of one powder charge of each type of powder, and then I shot 2 5-shot groups. Is that making sense? I loaded up 10 of the same thing with StaBALL, 10 of the same thing with 2000 MR, and I shot 2 groups for each of them. Our velocities were collected across all 10, or at least that was the intention. Today I had a little mishap out there. So, starting off with our 6.5, or not, our StaBALL match. Sorry, I read StaBALL and assumed 6.5. Charge weight of 27 grains. Now this is key here, guys. This may be dependent on if you're going to run into problems or not with your rifle. A overall length of 2.350, which I believe is 20 to 25 thousandths off of my lands in my rifle. That's going to depend on your exact gun and your exact chamber, and also going to depend what bullet you're shooting. That's not the same number for me across all my bullets. That's because I'm shooting the Barnes 112. You have to check with every individual bullet you have. Let's see here. So the first 5 shots I shot and everything was looking good. And while I was waiting for the rifle to cool off, my chronograph shut off, which lost the first 5 shots velocities. Now I know that I looked at the velocities, and the SD that was shown on screen was a 5 foot a second standard deviation, which really pisses me off because I know that it was a good SD and I wanted to know what all 10 together would put together. And what's interesting is the next 5 we collected, I did get the average of the second 5, and it was an average velocity of 24.49 with an SD of 5.6 and an ES of 16. So 2 different 5-shot groups, it brought in a SD of 5. I want to say that the original group was 24.41 if memory serves, but I'm really bad with remembering numbers. That's why I have to write all this stuff down. But overall, super consistent performance at a StaBALL match. Like, the velocities were fantastic as far as consistency. It's not my hot rod, but we still had room to go up, I believe. So as far as the performance of the targets themselves, on our first group, the rifle had been shot 5 times before this. It had 5 shots of fouling in it. It was cleaned before this trip. And they look like they really want to group. It's not a great measured group, but it's overall it's not bad. It's a 0.91 inch group, and there's a little bit of like left to right and vertical string. It's a horizontal line, but the 3 in the middle try and stacked up on top of each other. So that's really not a bad look there. I'm not too mad at that. So it looks pretty good, really consistent velocities. I really liked that. I did cool the gun between each 5-shot group as well. So moving on to our second group, as far as group size is concerned, stacked 3 right on top of each other, and I believe 1 shot out to the right. And so looking at this target here, we got a 0.62 inch group. So both of them shot under an inch, and today when I shot my first 5 rounds out of this gun to warm it up and get it fouled in, it was really just a 0 check with this gun because I just put the scope back on it. It shot a horrible 5-shot group of factory ammo. I was like, man, I don't know what's going on with this thing today, but I really hope it shoots better than that. And it did. The second group of StaBALL looks really good, and I'm happy with the performance out of it. Overall, I would absolutely chase more of the StaBALL match combo. I think it likes StaBALL match with this bullet. I think it's pretty happy there. We may be able to tweak our overall length a bit and maybe our charge weight a bit to bring up our speeds a little bit more. I remember when seating the bullet, it was a full case. It wasn't quite compressed. It was just good and full. So I don't know how much more we can stuff in there before we start getting the Rice Krispie sounds when we seat the bullets. So that pretty well covers it there. Moving on to Power Pro 2000 MR. Between the time that I shot StaBALL match and 2000 MR, I shot the 10 rounds for StaBALL, and then I traded rifles to my 7mm 08, and I alternated between which rifle I was shooting for 10 rounds at a time. So it gave the rifle time to cool down. I was also alternating the suppressor on the guns, which is a bit of a headache. I should have just brought 2 suppressors out there. I'm fortunate to have more than one, so I just wanted to... the truth is I wanted to try my AB suppressors on my 6-ARC and see how it sounded. The tone itself was a little bit higher pitched than on my 708, and not quite as good sounding without Ear Pro on. It didn't hurt my ears, I just didn't quite like the tone of it with the 6-ARC specifically. And I don't know what that is, but with my 708, I like the tone a lot more on that guy. So AB suppressors, Raptor 6 stack on there with a 2-inch reflex, I believe. Maybe it's a 3-inch. I don't know. It looks a lot bigger than it actually is. And it's very light because it's titanium. I like that suppressor a lot. It sounds great. Power Pro 2000 MR, 30.5 grains, loaded to the same overall length, 2.350. Our first group, it looks like we did get all 10 shots in this first, or I guess all 10 shots in the velocities. So our velocity across all 10 was 2,681 feet per second with an SD of 17.1. That's a little bit of a letdown there. I was hoping it'd be a little better than that. And an ES of 57. Now, when I was seating the bullets on top of this 2000 MR charge weight, it was lightly compressed. I could just tell, like, hey, this is just starting to kiss into that powder where there's no more room left. And if you took a case and shook one, you couldn't hear anything moving. There's no more room in the case. That's pretty much as full as you're going to get at a 2000 MR. I'm sure you could add more, but you're really just going to start smashing powder, and you're just going to start compressing the load more is all you're really going to do. And then as far as our groups are concerned, I didn't love the performance on the first group, and it shot a 1.1 inch. I could see from 100 yards that it just wasn't pretty. So I didn't give it much cool down time going into the second group. I think I gave it 2 minutes. Just let the air flow through it. And then I shot another not pretty group. So I don't think this powder and this bullet got along in this rifle. There's something about this combo it didn't like as far as shooting accurately. And I don't know what it was, because these were the, not the last groups I shot of the day, but second to last. So overall, 1.1 inch group on our first one, and then our second group as a 0.88 inch group. They just didn't look like they were trying to shoot into one hole, whereas the StaBALL was trying. I think with some seating depth tuning, we could get that StaBALL really dialed in. And again, like I said, we could probably get more velocity if we try and push it a bit more. So as far as velocity is concerned, yeah, we're 240 feet a second faster with Power Pro 2000 MR. So like I said from the beginning, 2000 MR is supposed to give us good velocities. It did its job. It did that. Unfortunately, just not stacking them up quite how I wanted. As far as the actual range conditions out there, it was about 50 degrees. It was overcast, as you saw, kind of a gloomy day, but really great conditions for shooting groups. There was very little wind, and it was nice and cool to help keep my rifles cool. And let's see here. As far as that first cold bore group, yeah, the velocity on that guy was 2751 across 5 rounds of the Hornady 108 match factory loading. So there you go as far as the velocity is concerned. So that pretty well covers it, guys. Where does that leave us with 6 ARC? I definitely think this bullet can shoot in this gun, and we just need to find more powder combos that it agrees with. I don't know that I'm trying to chase the velocities of the factory ammo with this. I'd just like to have a really good shooting round for this 6 ARC, which I haven't quite found yet. It will shoot good, and it's capable of doing pretty good, like that StaBALL at the .62. We're almost there. Like I mentioned, a little bit of seating depth tuning I think could really bring this thing to life, as well as, you know, just finding the right powder combo for it. The StaBALL match is doing a fantastic job as far as standard deviations go. Really good powder there. It's one of the best that I've shot in the last few weeks, and I've been shooting quite a bit, so I'm really happy with that. That will come back, and we're going to see if we can tighten it up a little bit, because if I can get consistent speeds like that, add a little more powder, keep its consistency, and just get a little more velocity, play with our seating depth to get a better group, now we're talking. So we'll have to experiment a bit more with StaBALL match. Maybe that'll be the next video for the 6 ARC. But I appreciate you guys watching. Definitely drop your comments down below what your opinions are on whatever BS I spouted here and whatever you don't agree with, or maybe you found the same thing that I have. Yeah, we need to find a solution for this overall length gauge, which might just include cutting the end of that thing off. So L.E. Wilson inline micrometer seating die here. Use an arbor press for this guy, and then it just smashes the bullet down in the case. Really straight ammo. This thing produces really straight ammo, and then you can get different seating stems, which is this little guy right here that pushes the actual bullet itself, so you can match the bullet profile. I use a full-length bushing die from L.E. Wilson as well. I got a set of dies here for it. I do have troubles trying to get this shoulder bumped up back a little bit more. It seems like I'm maxed out on my die, and it's just snug in the chamber. So I need to look into that a little more. Maybe I need a different shell holder that bumps the round closer to the die itself. So that's an option too. I appreciate you guys' time. We will see you in the next one.